Ahoy! There is a reason why I'm off centre. I will have graphics. Proper nice graphics today. I was so pleasantly surprised by the first video. It's like, I got 6 subscribers and like 40 views, and I was like completely expecting it to just go entirely unnoticed. So thank you. Unfortunately, which is very like me, I decided to start this endeavour directly before going on holiday. And just like me, the holiday completely knocked me out and I've been resting. So it's only like, I think 2 weeks of, you know, meandering around the country, and then like 2 weeks of recovery, and only now I'm like, okay, let's do another one. So I'm exhausted. So I'm doing my best, but I'm exhausted. Yeah, so I haven't done that much, and I wanted these writer rambles, whatever videos, to be kind of like a weekly update. So it's kind of keeping me accountable, but also so you can sort of see updates and see what's going on. And the way that my schedule works is I have like 1 week dedicated to art, and then 2 weeks, week 2 and 4 are dedicated to writing, and week 3 is dedicated to design. So this week was an art week. Usually I do illustration. You can follow my art account if you want. It's all over the place style wise, but I enjoy it, and I only really do stuff on that once a month. However, I was so exhausted, I haven't done that much, and I did more design stuff, so I thought I'd share that because it's more related, because this is supposed to be more about novel stuff. But that's why I'm off centre. So I've been looking more into the Dragonflower duology, which I've decided I'm just going to call the Dragonflower duology. It's what comes naturally to me. That's easy. It's not like a bad name. So the Dragonflower duology. I've been looking at that mostly. It's been consuming my mind, although a little bits have been starting to finally come back into my thoughts for the other one, which is great. But Dragonflower duology. Specifically, this week I was looking at Falīrh and like her masks and everything. I'm also someone who's really interested in historic fashion and costumery. When it comes to historic fashion and costuming and everything, I think everyone knows like the undergarments are really important. So I couldn't just draw her pretty dresses. No. This is Falīrh. Just a chemise, just basic underlayer. And you can kind of see, like, just even from this, the sort of silhouette that I'm sort of thinking about. It's mostly inspired by sort of classic medieval styling, but also a little bit of like the, which you'll see a little later, the 1900s, 1910s, like 1890s, that kind of period as well, just a little bit. It is definitely more medieval, classic medieval, but I do my own spins on it. So, for example, the country Lhoēketha is very well known for its gems and its metalwork. Something I touched on the last video is that this is my world. I'm going to be niche. I can do corsets if I want to, and I can make that make sense because it's a fantasy world where literally no one is human, everyone is magical, and blah blah blah. So I have corsets. But I did sort of style them off of Regency long stays, like just a little bit. And again, that like not 1890s, the like 1910s, that kind of corset where it's kind of starting to try to like pull everything in and make them very like cylindrical for the kind of 1920s fashions and whatnot. Now, I've never actually made any corsets or stays or anything, and I'd really, really like to, which is one of the reasons I have these books. But you can kind of see this is a very early corset. And you can kind of see that kind of shape in there just a little bit. So this is from the 1820s. And I'll never be a historic fashion YouTuber, but at the same time, I think a lot of fantasy really works the best when it's taking a really heavy inspiration from history. This is again another early corset. I don't think I've got any pictures of Regency long stays, but you can kind of see that it's like quite long, and a lot of it is fabric. Early corsets were like entirely corded and whatnot, but you can see in this, well, you might not be able to, but it's implied that there is boning. So the boning and whatnot, like I did take some inspiration from the Regency long stays, as I said, and early corsets. You see a lot of similarity there, and that is an 1890 corset. This is a 1917 corset, so you can see that sort of longer. You can kind of get an idea of like how I'm not taking inspiration from a specific time period. I'm kind of like really doing that fantasy thing where you mash everything together and it becomes something new. That's what I'm sort of aiming for. But I was sort of thinking about that medieval styling where it's very like form-fitted and slender to the body, and I was like, well, if they had corsets, what sort of corsets would it be? And I'm like, okay, well, what time periods did they have corsetry or stays? where they had similar silhouette. So that's why I was looking at the Regency period, although the way that their sort of undergarments worked was much more, they'd pull the bust in and then it was just, the dresses would just sit on top. So they didn't really do that whole entire body slendering, which is why I took more inspiration from more that 1890s to 1910s sort of time period, because they were trying to slender the hips a lot as well. So yeah, you can kind of see there's a little bit of a mix there. After you have your corset stays layer, so you've got chemise to protect the skin from the corsetry or stays. This would be corsetry, I think. After that, you have a layer on top of that to smooth out any lines and whatnot. So we have this layer. And this layer, I imagine, so like the first layer would be cotton or linen, and then this layer to be wool. Lhoēketha is incredibly cold, so it's like they have this like thick wool layer of just for warmth, like not for styling, like yes, to smooth out lines and everything, but also just to keep them warm because it's freezing. So this is the third layer of undergarments. And then we into the fun stuff. So you can't sit there and be like, she hasn't thought anything through. I haven't thought through a lot of stuff, but gosh darn it, those clothes are thought through. The beginning of the story, it's very much, we're going from Falīrh's perspective. I think there's a little bit of Edrum in there. Obviously, I'm still like, you know, finishing off the first draft, so a lot of changes will happen. I'm sort of wanting to start the story much more from Falīrh's perspective, and so we're really humanizing her and seeing what her position is. The first book being A Dragon Blooms, I wanted to be much more Falīrh focused. I'm trying to really humanize her, especially because when Edrum first meets her, even their normal clothing would be a bit but what she's wearing is specifically the travel clothing. It can be can take you aback a little bit. This is what Edrum first sees. As I mentioned in the last video, they wear masks sort of for a similar reason why originally you wore masks during Halloween, to sort of trick spirits so that they think that you're one of them. They're not interested in dealing with you. You remember the dragon design? All of her masks I wanted to be very heavily influenced by the dragon design. You got the feathers coming out of the sides, much like how the dragon does in a lot of the masks. But in this one specifically, it's also replicating the beak shape. Instead of scales here, it's got kind of metal that sort of replicates fire coming out of the mouth. The symbol on the middle of the forehead is supposed to be the house symbol. I haven't really decided exactly what it looks like, but I want it to look like a star, but so removed from a star that Edrum can confuse it for a flower. If you've got a completely different culture, different symbols mean different things and they look very different. So it's a star, but it looks like it could be interpreted as a flower. And Edrum's so used to seeing flowers everywhere and so much symbols that he immediately goes flower. And you can sort of see next to her, underneath the feathers and her family symbol again, her house symbol, she's got these little dangles. So I really like the tassels. The tassels are just a fun feature, but the bells are, again, it's a protective feature. So the entire mask is designed very much to protect her, including the dots on her eyes. So those are also supposed to be metal, which catches the light and it makes it seem like her eyes are there. I haven't established all of the spirits entirely. I know that one of them definitely steals faces. I know that they, through looking through the eyes, can do things, some of them. So I want to sort of be like misdirecting. A look of the circles on the side of face kind of feel like eyes, and the dots on the eyelids also feel like eyes. So it's supposed to be, this look is like almost entirely designed to just be protective, which is very, 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 very intimidating for Edrum when he first sees it. So this is when Edrum is first meeting Falīrh. This is a first draft. So although I'm pretty happy with like the quality of my first drafts, still a first draft, come on. As their horses come to a stop, I reach my hand up to the one who I guess is Princess Falīrh. I get a sense that she's looking down at me, but through the veil and mask it's impossible to tell what expression she could possibly have. It's unsettling how thoroughly covered she is, as if she's hiding something, as if she's something else, a spirit. So that's sort of like his first interpretation. He's taken aback and whatnot. And I need to, you know, really hammer that home a little bit better. But that's what this costume is. So when I was first designing this, I started off on paper, and you can see it's deviated a lot from what I was looking at. There's some ideas that are still there, but it's definitely different. And that was because of the formal mask, which we'll get to. But before that, I wanted to show the sort of general, what she usually wears on a day-to-day. So this is what essentially Edrum falls for, which is still incredibly intimidating. I wanted it to sort of be like physically very hard, and very, very different, because I wanted him to sort of not really realize his feelings until the very, very end. It's a slow burn, but I wanted him to be very, very reluctant to that. That family mark on her forehead, it's essentially a crown. They're not super duper big into titles and whatnot. The way that they view things is a little bit different. So although yes, they go, yes, this is who I am, it's not like as much of a look at me. Having said that, the next one I think will sort of, yeah, this is what she will usually wear outside of ceremonies. So even for more sort of feasts or formal dinners or whatnot. So if she was in an area that she was more comfortable with, she probably wouldn't wear the veil, she'd just wear the mask, which would be a little less intimidating and frightening and everything. So it's going to be really interesting seeing Eithram go from like, ugh, to like, oh no, I kind of get it. And then right at the end, he's like, he's just so used to it, he doesn't even really notice it anymore. This one I don't really want to talk too much about, because there's a lot of, I've been coming up with a lot of ideas where it's like, okay, well, the white mask means this, and white has an association with this, and red has an association with this. And that needs to be explored very, very slowly. And she's kind of doesn't really want to talk about it. And so in book 2, when Eithram learns about that, he's like, excuse me, what? And I don't want to, keep some things secret. Gotta try and entice you to read the book. That I hopefully will finish at some point. Next week is writing week. I can get good progress. The next one is the formal masks. And I started off, I'm just doing little sketches. This is much more grand. This is more, it's the formal mask, but it's more like the ceremonial mask. So here we have it. This top one here is based more on this, but I felt it was way too aggressive. So once more, I was looking at the dragon and seeing those features and everything, and I'm like, I like it. It's cool. And I think it does evoke the feelings that the Ailish people would feel, but that's kind of not what the Lhoēketha would be thinking or feeling when they made these masks. So I was like, okay, well, I need to tone it back a bit. So this mask down here, that's what the actual mask looks like. This is just a headdress. So if she was going to a particularly formal event, she'd probably just wear this formal metal engraved mask and not the headdress. The headdress specifically is the more ceremonial look. So this is for particularly, I'm a princess, this is my status, those kinds of things, or for, ceremonies, weddings, funerals, those kinds of things. Like, it wouldn't be every single more formal event. That's what this mask is more for. However, when she's first formally coming into Eilidon and being formally introduced, she does wear this headdress. And so yeah, it's got the feathers, which are reminiscent of the dragon, but also this sort of crown. It's all metal because their culture is very much known for metalwork. It's got some more of those tassels, which are just fun. It's a fun little flair. You'll note that all of these dangly things, they're not jewels. It's more metalwork. The only jewels are the star in her house symbol. Those are the only jewels. So you'd think it's like, they're well known for their jewels and their metalwork. You'd think that they'd be covered in jewels. But again, there are story reasons why that's not really the case. This is what her formal outfit would look like, which doesn't look that dissimilar from her normal outfit. It's her veil is longer. Her gloves have metal claws. Her belt is, again, it's a bit more ostentatious, and it's got a bell at the bottom. I did change. You can see the other masks had blue tassels, but they were the same color as the dress. And as I was putting it all together, I was like, no, okay, it needs to be red. So bringing in that red again, which has cultural significance, which Eithram wouldn't understand. I really wanted to get more masks done. I wanted to go through like everyone's, but exhausted. There's only so much you can do. I need to rest, recuperate. But this is sort of her formal thing. So this is when she's being formally introduced. From Eithram's perspective, she goes from wearing the travel outfit to wearing this and then to the casual, the sort of more informal mask and whatnot. So it goes from very intimidating to still intimidating, but like at least now there's more, he will see more artistry in it. And then to the sort of normal one where it's just like, oh, suddenly you're not wearing feathers everywhere and like metal feathers and metal work and all of that. I can imagine it would be a pain in the ass to travel with us. It's just like, okay, well, we've got to go to a formal. Well, we need the formal headdress. Just got like this one suitcase just for that headdress. Of course, her mother is there as well, the queen, and she'd be wearing like an ostentatious headdress as well. And her brother is also there, so he would also be wearing the more formal attire. So it'd be this whole little group just like, hello, excuse me, which would be quite frightening for poor little Edrum and all of the very not used to this sort of thing Ailish people. Later on, I mentioned before in the other one, I had this sketch page. I'm not 100% happy with the design, but I did draw the dress that Etty makes for her. So this is sort of, you know, that classic, you know, nerd into beautiful like makeover scene. I have that in a way. It's like, okay, your culture's it's a bit different, it's a bit much. Let's sort of push you closer to ours. And there are story reasons why that happens. Falīrh, as you can understand, would be very reluctant to this sort of thing to begin with, because she's proud of her culture, she likes her culture, and she's of course a princess of that culture, so she's kind of, you know, eventually pushed into it. But this is what I've come up with, which is, it's still got the same intimidating factor and everything. I can imagine she would want, I can't decide if I want her to wear the headdress or not during the scene, I'll figure it out, but it's kind of like, I get the feeling that she probably would, because she'd feel so foreign and strange in this dress that she's just like, well, I need something to sort of be really a part of my culture. Even the veil is a very different shape. So it's sort of, you're thinking about an Ailish person trying to make Lhoēketha clothing design. And so you get the big puffy sleeves. And this one is very much, it's quite modern, I will admit. It is a bit modern, but it's meant to be indicative of the 1890s again. So her undergarments are already kind of reminiscent of the 1890s, but yeah, you can see lovely big sleeves. So I'll grab an old design of Etty, which is the character who makes this. I probably will change the way that she looks and everything. I'm still pretty happy with the dress, but you can kind of see how she would interpret their fashion and change it and be like, okay, well, I can't do too much. I can't have too much frill and lace and blah, because Falīrh would of course give her like a whole bunch of ground rolls. So she focuses on this black dragon that's going across her chest and just swirling all the way around her body. That's supposed to be entirely beaded. So it's sort of shimmer. The entire outfit is, most of the fabrics and whatnot that Falīrh would be dressed in, it would be wool. Her formal dress could be velvet, but that would be like the most rich kind of fabric that she would wear is probably velvet. So I imagine this dress to be very shining, and you know, you got like all these shining beads, and then you've got the puffy sort of, you know, you've got, I kind of was thinking, this is something I mentioned, I think in the last video again, where the Ailish people are quite inspired by the Cinderella 2015 dress. So I'm sort of imagining that bottom bit is like organza, and it flows and really like shifts when she moves, and then like the dress is like satin of some sort, just this like insane black beading. I was just doing like base designs. I didn't want to like sit down and try and render fabrics and everything. You can kind of see what I'm going for, where it's much more grand than what she usually wears, and it's much more in the Ailish style, but there's still sort of some things that kind of keep it more grounded in that Lhoēketha mindset and ideas and everything. So the dragon, which I have drawn and has an artistic representation here, that is on the flag. Lhoēk flag, I'm imagining to be you know, very dark blue with like a circle of white, which is the moon, and then a black silhouette of a dragon. And they're kind of, you know, those lions, which are just like rare. One of those sort of things, but it's a dragon as the centerpiece. I'm not 100% sure if I like the design. I need to like really look into that. But that's the kind of base idea for their flag, is the sky with the moon and then a black dragon in the middle. So this design on her chest is sort of reminiscent of that, and it's sort of, it's very much it's her culture and she loves it, but like I wanted it to sort of be very much like, it's not just Etty, because how Etty would dress her would be you know, just tool out the wazoo and just so many layers and everything. She'd be like, get rid of that silly mask and we're gonna put flowers in your hair. And so I kind of imagine Falīrh being like really reining her in and just be like, no, if you're gonna make me a dress, then you're gonna do it my way. And yes, I will make some concessions. Sure, we can have big sleeves, sure, we can have elaborate beading, and we can have an interesting, you know, a different veil and whatnot, but these are the things that you must take into account. And if I'm wearing something very, very different, then I want to still represent my people. And so that's kind of where this whole outfit is kind of coming from, and I like it. I think the red is, in a lot of ways, at this point, it's her reclaiming the colour. So she's always felt very weighed down by red, and it's always been like, again, I don't want to go into spoilers. So she's always, like, the colour's always been like something pushed upon her, and this is her kind of being like, no, I'm going to be my own person, thank you very much. And that's not only taking that chance and taking that risk and getting an A-list dressmaker to make a beautiful gown, but it's also, you know, wearing that colour so brightly, and it's very, very, very bold. So that's what that moment is supposed to be for her, is her being like, no, this is what I am. This is her blooms moment. So the whole, you know, the first book is called A Dragon Blooms. This is her blooming. This is her being like, nope, I'm gonna not, you know, just be pushed around and just do what I'm saying. I want this, and this is what's going to happen. So it's a very big, powerful moment for her. And so, of course, I had to design the dress. It's, like, stuck in my mind. I'm like, I just want this, like, I want, most of the veils are much more, I don't have any pictures of the back of them, but they kind of come in to a knot and then flare out again. So it doesn't flare off too much. It's not, you know, getting in everyone's way and faces and whatnot. Like, it still sort of flutters around them, but it just doesn't go quite so far or out there, whereas this one you can sort of see is much more like modern bridal designs, where it can do that beautiful sort of flowing thing. Her travel veil as well is much more loose, and it can flow a little bit more, but again, that's to be reminiscent of spirits and whatnot. So most of their veils are sort of tied and kept much more together. So this one sort of, you know, and it's got lace at the bottom, and just this moment where she, like, walks into this, like, pastel pop pinks and banana yellows and, you know, like, blues, and, like, just the sea of, like, pastel colours that are just all swirling together, and then she just comes out and she's just like this goth princess, and it's this, like, it's just, it's such a moment, and I can't wait. I can't wait. It's actually I think it's the next bit that I'm writing is this bit, so I'm very, very excited about this bit. Next week is a writing week. So I'd like to share little excerpts of writing here and there. I'm still working on the first draft for Dragonflower. For Feather Hall, I'm on the second draft. So on the writing weeks, it's going to be much more about that kind of thing, I think. Or maybe if I've had to stop and figure something out, or maybe looking into the mythology of, like, for example, the Cherise, which is one of the spirits. And that one I actually do have fleshed out. It's basically a banshee, but I'll go into that properly maybe. Thank you for listening to me ramble and looking at my designs. There will be more, because I can't stop myself, which is why there's a whole week in my monthly schedule dedicated to design, because otherwise I sit there and I start writing and go, I wonder what that would look like, and I sit down and I draw it. Instead, I write that down and go, what is that gonna look like? And I just leave a note for myself, and then on design week I can look at it, but just trying to get the writing along and everything. So thank you so much for watching this long. If you hated it and you made it this far, thank you especially. That's okay, I'm learning and I'll get there and I'll be brilliant, I'm sure. Like and subscribe. The 6 of you who already have, top tier individuals, thank you. I will see you next week, hopefully. At least I don't have any travel plans. Bye-bye. I'm so exhausted. I'm listening to music to try and get me through this, and I'm listening to my metal playlist. And Ailstorm has a cover of the Teo Cruz song Hangover. They've got a cover of it, and it's such a bop. And I'm just like, you got feathers coming out of the sides of her. Why is it another bop?